like to then hand over to the first presenter, Joost van Optik. If you can turn on your camera and then also start presenting. Thank you.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, good morning. I hope everybody can hear me properly. I will actually share a number of slides. I was under the impression I would follow my dear friend and brother Ibrahim, but apparently I have the opportunity to start first. So let me share my screen and show you the PowerPoint. I have a number of slides I want to take you through over the next 10, 15 minutes. Just one moment, please.
Okay. So I think we will okay. So Joost is going to start shortly.
Yes, you can hear me, can you? Hello?
Yes, you can.
Wonderful. I was not sure. There were some issues this morning. I just wanted to verify that. Thanks so much. So let me start then. You should be seeing the same my screen now. Let me first quickly take you through the status of AFAB and what AFAB brought into the digital arena, if you like. With a background of being active across Africa over the past decade, developing agro-dealer networks in multiple countries, not only was AFAB able to really provide practical support and actionable advice, as a result of that, it has built a huge network of distributors, farmer organizations, and outreach to millions of farmers. The big benefit of that, particularly because it's linked to a lot of the actual transactional interactions of the farmers, has been that there has been huge access to data. Data collected and leveraged as a trusted third party to support the farm services, but also to support help build the supply chain. So as a result of that, increasingly, we're working on leveraging that network in order to help setting standards for data collection, which data, in which way, and how should they be packaged and aggregated and then applied, but also how different organizations and stakeholders can collaborate and work together, because we can build on the platforms and the relationships we already have in place. So you can align on standards and also make it possible to actually exchange information and align information and make sure that we work with similar type of formats so it's easier to compare and benchmark. And finally, to convert that into actionable things, actionable priorities, in the sense that it's not just about a lot of analysis and a lot of data, but it's actually leveraged to do the right thing better and more efficient and at a larger scale. And that can be across policy, extension, financing, and the larger world of digitization. The core of AFAB is really the fact that through our heart, if you like, which is the hub agro dealer, or the wholesalers, if you like, the distributors of all forms of agro inputs, it not only actually addresses the input side, at the same time, we also are active on the output side. So we support also the aggregators. Again, a role in which the agro dealers play a main role. This is, if not a core role. This is reflected on the two infographics on the right-hand side. The top one reflecting the pre-production process, or if you like, the role of inputs there, and the bottom one on the right, how that works with the output. And what is important about this is that actually it shows and helps to better accommodate the needs of the farmer, but also linking it to the economic transactions of the farmer. So there's more matching of whatever commitments have gone into on the input, in the input phase, linking that to the output phase in a way that not only the farmer is secured of a good market, but also any credit guarantees or any other forms of support in order to have him or her use the right inputs are properly settled as well. Digital recording, risk mitigation, advisory services, obviously these are all very important in that process. And we have been working a lot leveraging this platform to constantly develop, validate, and launch new technologies ourselves, but obviously also with many partners. So let me give you a few examples. What are we talking about? What does that mean? And I will try to give you, in the brief time we have, one or two specific examples of that type of partnership, as we like to call it, because we do see that this is something you do not do in isolation, but you do that in a collaborative way. If you look at policy, you see that there's a lot of learnings from other countries, which sometimes are a little bit further down the road when it comes to the market maturity of, for example, fertilizers than other countries. And they go through a lot of similar type of phasings. By using research-based facts, we can actually advise proven interventions to governments to help them develop their policy effectively and in an efficient manner. If you look at the supply chain, not only is the affordability, of which people talk a lot, of course, access to finance and being able to finance inputs important, availability is at least as important. So a strong, solid supply chain, which is properly structured and organized and has access to the right data, is critical, not only commercially, but also in terms of proper money. So knowledge management framework is actually a very...
Hello, Joost, just not to cut you, but I think there's quite a lot of feedback from your end. So if there's anybody else with their mics on, can you kindly turn off your mic so that it's just Joost's mic that's on, please?
Yes, on my end, it's very quiet here, so it must be somebody else who is not on mute.
So please, can everybody else turn off their mic so we just have only Joost's mic on so we can minimize the feedback? Thank you.
Yeah, you want me to continue or should I wait a moment?
I think you can continue now.
All right. But if you look at the retail, the actually points of sale, it's very important there as well to measure product performance and the stock levels. Not only in terms of standardizing that so you can better understand what is actually being sold and in which amount and in which periods of time, but also how can that be optimized so the retailers themselves can get a better return on their investment so they can better service their customers, but also the whole supply chain as such can better support that front line, if you like, towards the farmer in terms of the optimal product portfolio and the optimal timing of that portfolio as well, vis-a-vis seasonality and specific needs at the farm field level. So that brings you to the final point, which is the farm field. There as well, it's critical, not of course just to receive advisory services, as we all know, and good extension networks, but also to do that based on proper information, whether that's based on the soil, whether that's on historical performance of the farm or of region, or whether it's the actual location. And that is also tied to the right incentives for the farmer, so he actually or she actually can see what's in it for them to adopt and collaborate in that context. And it's not just another passerby or another freebie, but it's really something which is an integrated support system to help them grow their business. So if you look at the policy, this is how we typically approach a review, design, and implementation of policy, for which we have developed what we call a dashboard and an online database for a country when we go through this process. And you see a number of countries where we have done this already and are still active. One thing I want to just highlight here is the second column, which is about the market maturity of that fertilizer market in a country, which is along 5 key indicators, which we can actually research. And as we do that, rather than trying to cover the whole palette of intervention, support, and other activities, we can then focus and prioritize on what needs to be done. And we can then actually track and provide a proper overview on how that has progressed. This is an example of Uganda, where we have been active in supporting the policy development of fertilizer for a number of years now. And we try to constantly update and inform all stakeholders through what we call a tracker, which is based on that data dashboard. But what we also do is to link this to what we call an index, which helps us to identify what needs to be done where and when on those 5 key indicators I just outlined. And you see on the right-hand side three examples of different countries. This is all anonymized in this context, of course, but shows the different scores and rankings of those 5 indicators, and how that reflects to what we would call the overall index score, which will then help to understand, okay, where do we stand as a country when it comes to fertilizer policy development? Are we in the phase 1, if you like, where we need to set priorities? This is on the bottom left of this matrix, establish the organization, proper gap analysis, alignment, and so on. Or are we already zooming in on specific policy drivers to provide specific support to certain PPP initiatives or certain private sector requirements or gaps? And then obviously you move on to a more collaborative platform in phase 3, and so on and so forth. So this helps very directly to make a more practical and efficient approach. If we go on and look at the, I hope I'm still on my time. Let me quickly move on. If we then look at, the distribution, here I was telling you about the network AFAB has across Africa when it comes to hubs. In this case, I just want to zoom in on with the example of Ghana, where you see those hubs reflected here across Ghana. And if you then want to see how they are organized and linked, we have the more detailed underlying database for that, with all those connections we work with on the ground and who we support in their transactions and interactions with farmers, as well as with the distributors, and how they are then linked to the specific retailers, the points of sale where the farmers actually go to, or who actually go and see the farmer to support them. This is a very powerful tool, not just to understand in terms of reach and effectiveness on how well a country is covering the needs of their agribusiness and agriculture, but also to zoom in specifically on performance at individual level or at aggregate level when it comes to stock management, when it comes to inventories, when it comes to specific product portfolios, and so on. Another way of looking at it is actually at the retail level. And this is an example where we are working on, see, okay, how this also can be applied in some instances for specific retail groups in agribusiness, where the key point really is that you're able to have a proper understanding on how sales develop and where your customers are, how invoices are being issued, which villages are being served, and how that then is reflected versus other regions and areas, but also how that is reflected on the product groups, product performance. And you can see how they are benchmarking vis-a-vis another, but also how individual products are performing, and also how they are linked to certain phases throughout the year, seasonality, but also in terms of distribution, where you see that some villages have a much higher sale than others, which sometimes has got to do with the actual reach with the existing retail points, and sometimes it's linked to the fact that those villages are not properly informed or being kept up to date with the right portfolio for their needs. And then obviously you can zoom in on specific areas. So let's take this as a region, and again you can see then how does that actually work in terms of your sales, what are your customers, and how does it then link to your product portfolio, what are your gaps. And you can do that at an individual sales level here by customer. You can actually see who are your biggest customers, by a top 10. These are different ways of slicing and dicing it. The key point here is that instead of trying to approach it as sort of a one green carpet, you can really provide customer-based, data-based decisions and support as a retailer, but also from an AFAB perspective, you can help them develop and perform in a way that they can actually self-sustain their business and better collaborate with others. So they either as a distributor or a hub perform better support towards their retailers, or as a retailer, you're better connected to your distributors and you make more informed decisions. So finally, on extension, the key point here is that extension is not an ad hoc process. It's an ongoing process. A farmer is ongoing with his crop cycle, starting with preparing the land all the way to a harvesting, and then again reassessing what his land should be growing next season, and so on and so forth. So that has to be based on solid record keeping, so he can take, or she can take, the right decisions. And one example we have been working on with AFAB is to try and see how you can better explore digital extension, not just to link it to the input and the output market, which obviously is the core of what AFAB does. So processors, agro dealers can make more informed decisions and can provide better service, but also to relieve the physical extension network. So an individual extension agent can increase his reach, sometimes up to 4, 5, 6-fold, serving the numbers of, in terms of farmers served, versus doing that in the classical analog way. But particularly important is, at the end of the day, the farmer himself or herself is considered as a business person, and he or she can actually see how well she's performing, and what decisions can be made, and how that benefits their business. So, summarizing, with our unique series of collaborative networks, we are able to capture a lot of grassroots agribusiness data, and we try to really enhance that and use that in a way that we can boost farm productivity and better support the farmers than we do already. So this digital age is considered for us to be a fantastic opportunity to further team up and work along these categories of solutions and services, as I try to stipulate in these brief presentations. So with that having said, I hope I remained more or less in my time. And I would like to hand it back to you, Nana Aisha. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you, Nana Aisha. Is that because I'm not connected, or because there is something else I'm missing here?
Hi, Joost. I think Nana Aisha dropped off. If you don't mind, you can continue as moderator.
Of course, that's not a problem. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Folu Okunade is also present in the meeting. Maybe if you could just switch on your camera so we can see that you're there and we can see where you are on this huge list. Sorry, I see here Erna. The person on behalf of Hello Tractor who will present, is that indeed Folu, or is that somebody else?
Yes, that's Folu. I'm here. I think my camera's turned on.
The moment I thought that was somebody else. Okay, well, if you could introduce yourself and then see it really.
Hello, Joost. Thank you for stepping in. I'm back now.
Yes, I already introduced Folu now. He's about to start his presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks, Joost. I didn't hear that last part. So let me. Hopefully, everyone can hear me. Let me try to share my screen here. Let's see. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. Let's do this full screen. All right, my name is Folu Okunade, and I am delighted to join you guys on this webinar. I am, as Nana mentioned at the beginning, COO at Hello Tractor, and located in Nairobi, Kenya. For those of you who are not familiar with Hello Tractor is an agri-tech startup that aims to connect tractor owners that are using their assets as for contracting with farmers that are looking for mechanization services. We actually started in Nigeria in 2015, and we opened up a second office in Kenya in late 2018. But we operate across Africa. We've got devices and tractors in 10 African countries so far and 3 Asian countries. All right. I guess we can begin this by kind of framing the challenges and the environment that we operate in. The first challenge that we look to address is the challenge of smallholder farmers who are in need of mechanized services to really drive agriculture productivity and increase the cultivation of their land. We know that there's a large yield gap that we're trying to close as well. As most of you are aware, the average land size for smallholder farmers is less than 2 hectares. So really outright ownership of a tractor doesn't make much economic sense. So some of the other challenges are that a lot of farmers end up using manual labor. However, we know that manual labor is more than twice as expensive if you look at the full value chain than tractor services. We also know that it takes a lot more time to do it manually than to use mechanized services. We estimate about 40 times slower than tractors, which leads us to this loss of yield, which we believe up to 50% of Africa's yield gap can actually be attributed to a lack of mechanization. The other challenge that we have is on the supply side with tractor owners. So we know that over 20 million tractor owners across the developing economies are in need of a technology to make their assets more profitable. Tractors in emerging markets are overwhelmingly sold to contractors who purchase these low horsepower tractors. And typically the low horsepower tractors are not the ones that manufacturers have embedded a lot of innovation and a lot of technology into. A lot of them don't have links to a CAN bus or anything like that. So that's an area that we're looking to address as well. We also know that the markets are fragmented. There's a lack of farmer coordination across the last mile, and this makes it difficult for tractor owners to service demand. Because if you look at other types of sharing economies like Uber, I can decide to book an Uber service and go 2 blocks down the road, and that Uber will still come. For tractors, it's a little bit different. To ask a tractor owner to service 2 hectares of land becomes very challenging because it still doesn't make economic sense for them to go to a single farmer. There's also lack of oversight, fraud and misuse by tractor operators. So tractor owners often come to us saying that they don't know what's going on because they're not physically on the field, so they don't know if their tractors are actually being used. They only go by word of mouth. And then we've also noticed a poor after sales support in terms of access to technicians and parts when a tractor, for example, breaks down in the field or while it's doing work. And then if we look at kind of the productivity and the yield gaps, we know that tractors per 100 square kilometers of arable land, the global average is 200, and we sit in Africa at 8. And in Nigeria, where we started, it's 6.5. So we believe that there's a lot of obviously you can see the scale of the challenge, but there's a lot of opportunity as well to hopefully close that gap. What are some of the solutions that us as Hello Tractor are looking to bring into the market? Essentially, what we want to do is crowd in low-cost technology into these markets and into these devices that are low horsepower, low innovation, low technology, to be able to really unify an ecosystem and connect the global marketplace. So we work across partners in the manufacturing space, in the tractor contracting space, banks, dealers, and farmer organizations to really help not only crowd in the technology for the tractors, but also organize the farmers who need these tractor services to be able to deliver mechanization services effectively and cost effectively to the farmers. We have several products that do this. Our solution essentially begins with a hardware device, which is a telematics device that sits on top of tractors. This hardware helps to connect the tractors to our platform, so that when a farmer wants to book those services, they can simply go into a mobile app on their phone and see which tractors are nearby and what implements are nearby. So if they need a fertilizer spreader, or if it's a plow or harvester, they know which tractors are nearby and can simply book on the app. There's two separate apps, one for the contractor and one for the booking agent. To the end user, they're the same app, but different entry points. So the tractor contractor is able to see when a farmer has booked demand services, and they have the option to accept that booking. The farmer also has a booking app where they can then go and say, hey, I need, I'm farmer X in this location. I need a harvester for 10 hectares of land. And then we also have services which we kind of call our enterprise applications, which are bespoke, really made for banks to track the assets that they're financing, or for larger organizations or fleet owners who want to track things like fuel consumption and other relevant information. So kind of how do we do this? There's a lot going on in this slide, but it really is kind of what we call our growth flywheel, which to those in the development space is another fancy word for our theory of change. So what we really see as the core problem that we're trying to solve is the lack of mechanization in developing markets that we operate in. But the answer is not as simple as deploying assets into the market. So one of the ways that we've looked to tackle this challenge is really by focusing first on the existing tractor supply. We believe that in many markets, if not in all markets, the current tractor supply is actually underutilized and underproductive. And so we want to crowd those existing tractors into our platform, enable them with a technology solution that we provide, and allow them to really optimize their assets, their tractors. Once we do that, we believe that crowding in of the existing supply will actually help unlock a lot of the demand. So what we do on the demand side is work with these farmer organizations that I mentioned earlier, to really help aggregate the demand in a way that now makes economic sense for the tractor owners to supply into. So we invest a lot in what we call our booking agents. In other areas, they're called hiring agents. They're similar to extension workers, really, but these are young entrepreneurial folks that are adept with technology and can really book on behalf of farmers. And their job is really to aggregate the demand. So walk around 10 farmers with 2 hectares each, for example. And then help make sure that the service that's delivered is of quality and is timely. So they're also kind of the go-between between the farmer and the tractor owner. Once this happens, once you kind of deploy investments in the supply and the demand side, we really see this third part, the farmer demand, really growing. We believe that there's tons of pent-up demand. That once the services become more transparent and more reliable, that demand will only grow. The growth in demand then leads to higher profits for tractor owners, which leads to higher liquidity to be able to finance additional tractors into the market. So that's kind of how we see the theory of change working. With additional tractors on the market, then we can service more customers as well. This slide kind of goes into really how the typical process that we take kind of at a high level. As I mentioned earlier, we really focus on booking agents as a conduit to the farmer in order to be able to aggregate the demand and to also work as a conduit between the farmer and the tractor owner. It's important for us that the demand is aggregated because that is an incentive to the tractor owners to supply a greater demand rather than trying to convince them to supply into 2 hectares of land, for example. As soon as the booking agent and the contractor are fitted with the Hello Tractor technology, they help to identify and market farmers for pre-book jobs using the playbook that we've developed. The reason we've mentioned pre-book jobs is, as many of you that are in the space probably are aware of, it's very difficult to get people to plan in advance of the season. So this is something that we work daily very hard on trying to convince folks to pre-book demand. We know that once the peak season comes, everybody wants jobs at the same time. So it's really important for us to actually get the demand before the season so that we can optimize the use of the tractor throughout the season. We also have built in route optimization tools that will help with that planning. So it can direct tractors on the right route to take in order to maximize their profits. And then the booking agent collects the down payment, and then the job is completed. The booking agent is also a bit of a in the field sales rep as well, who's able to collect the payment and then disperse the payment, and they get a commission based on their services. That's really our solution in terms of our company. As I mentioned at the top of my presentation, we started in 2015. We've grown to 13 countries. We have an ever-growing network of dealers and contractors, finance partners, as well as tractor owners and manufacturers. We've got over 3,000 tractors and devices on our platform so far. And we've managed to mechanize over 1.2 million acres in the 5 years that we've been in operation. So we're looking for additional growth in the years ahead. That is all that I have. Any questions or questions at the end?
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, Folu. As I mentioned when we were starting the presentation, the questions will be posted on Mindy and also in the question and comment section of the screen on your right-hand side. At the end of all of the presentations, we will then go ahead to then go through the questions. We just have a slight change in the program. We will be having the presentation by the CEO of Grow Africa at the end of of the presentation, because what then he would then be presenting is to tie in the role or to reiterate the importance of private sector's participation in the agri-tech sector. So we will go ahead to have the next presenter on the bill, who is going to be Mr. Onyeka Akuma, who will then be presenting on FarmCloud.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. So if you're not presenting, you kindly turn off your camera and then also your mic, so that we can be audible, and then we also have reduced bandwidth use. Thank you.
Okay, I'm actually presenting, so I was going to share my screen.
Yes. No, go ahead. Please go ahead, Father.
Okay. Okay. All right. I don't know if you can see my screen, but can you see my screen?
Yes, your screen is very visible. Yes, you can go ahead.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Onyeka Akuma, and I'm the founder and CEO of FarmCloud. FarmCloud started off in 2016, November 2016, out of Lagos, Nigeria. And the mandate when we started was we looked at the agriculture space, and we started figuring out how we use technology in providing solutions for millions of farmers, first in Nigeria, that we noticed had issues across access to capital, for them to improve the inputs that they use to work, access to markets to sell their farm produce and make a decent margin from it, or even technical knowledge to even improve the work that goes onto their farm, and then also reducing the widespread post-harvest loss. Now, while conducting our research before starting out with FarmCloud, we noticed that just in Nigeria alone, there are over 38 million small-scale farmers. Now, of all the numbers that everyone gets excited about, including the fact that agriculture contributes 25% of the entire GDP in the country, we decided that the number of farmers that were classified as small-scale farmers who had those three main problems that were mentioned earlier on were the people we wanted to focus on. And how did we go about it? We set out with a mandate to empower the farmers, contribute to food security, but also because the average age in FarmCloud today is 24, we made sure that we were going to find ways of engaging youth in the agriculture space. So we created a crowdfunding platform, pretty much that allowed people to now find different form of investment opportunities for them to put their money into the different farm types that we had profiled prior to making those opportunities available on our platform. And then when we get the money, we're able to get the necessary inputs for the farmers, whether it's seed, fertilizer, tractor service. So I mean, it was good to come after my colleague from Hello Tractor. They are our partners, and so we're able to get the monies we can use to engage the likes of Hello Tractors or engage the likes of AFAB to get the fertilizer that we need for the farmers to work with on the farm in order to improve the yield that comes from what they work on the farm on. Now, in addition to all of this, we're providing updates to people. So people got excited about the fact that they were now participating in the agriculture space from the comfort of their homes. And so they were putting money through the platform. They see the farmers go through the full cycle. And at the end of the season, they get a share of the profit from what the farmer sold the harvest on, while the farmer is able to increase the production on his farm. So this became in itself what FarmCloud was between 2016 up until early this year when there was a slight change into the model, because we noticed that beyond raising money for the farmers, there were several other things that farmers and people across the food value chain experienced as major problems. And because of our take of using technology to solve problems for the value chain, we decided to create more solutions for the entire ecosystem. And this led into us creating 5 different products out of what FarmCloud originally was doing. So first was around structured finance, which we call FarmCloud Structured Finance, where with our crowdfunding model, we've raised over 15 million US dollars for over 25,000 farmers in the last 3 years. That has allowed them to cultivate over 17 acres of farmland and raise over 3 million birds and 2,000 bulls within that period. In addition to this is, because we also have the means of gathering the farmers' data, we reduce the risk for lenders to engage with our farmers, where they're able to provide for the lenders, whether it's the development funds or it's the banks or it's just basically financial institutions that want to lend to farmers, now find our structured finance products ideal for them to be able to engage with them, because we have reduced the risk around how they profile the farmers. So we're able to get historical data of the farmers. This speaks also to what we've done with the FarmCloud Tech and Data team. So we get historical data of the farmers, we get operational data of the farmers, we get transactional data of the farmers, so that they can then make well-informed decisions. Also, we set out to converting our aggregation points across 102 centers in 8 states in Nigeria that has a minimum of 15 metric tons of commodity that can stay in each aggregation center per time. Those aggregation centers became touch points for our farmers to get the inputs they want within 2 kilometers from their farm. But in addition to that is also at the harvest season, it also becomes a point where the farmer can bring his harvest. So pre-season starting, they get their inputs from the aggregation point, and after the season, they can get their harvest over to those aggregation points and get it sold, and they are credited in their wallets, and they're able to use their money within 24 hours for what they want to do. Also, we had FarmCloud Foods, and under FarmCloud Foods, there are 3 major things we've been doing. One is we've been setting out to build a meat hub franchise model that sees us set different meat hubs across first the state of Lagos, that sees over 6,000 bulls slaughtered every day, with the opportunity now for people to now eat healthy, traceable meat that comes from our meat hub. That opportunity opened up with FarmCloud Foods. Second was in February of this year, we acquired the 3rd largest beef processing facility in Lagos that will allow us to be churning out up to 100 bulls per day that can be processed in that facility. For the bulls that come from our farms, and also bulls that come from other places that we have traced, and we know that they are fit for slaughter. All of this then consolidated into the FarmCloud Foods app that now makes it available for people. And this came into being during the COVID period, essentially, where people couldn't go to the markets any longer, but now they could use the FarmCloud Foods app to order for food items that are then delivered to their doorsteps, whether it's rice or beans or plantain or even meat or chicken. They order on the FarmCloud Foods app, and it's now delivered to their doorstep. So those things then constitute what we've now referred to as FarmCloud Foods. Then there's FarmCloud Insurance, where we have gone into partnerships with insurance companies and Nigerian banks to provide insurance packages for the farmers within our network, and such that the farmers are now able to get both life, health, property, and crop insurance for competitive rates that makes it attractive to them and increase the value the farmers get as a result of that effort for farmers within our network. And then the last one, which I mentioned earlier when I talked of structured finance, is FarmCloud Tech and Data, where within the last 3 years, some of the applications we have built have won awards globally for what we've been doing with the farmers and how they've been helping the farmers improve their work. So we've now decided to commercialize some of that technology that we built for ourselves in FarmCloud to allow other stakeholders use it to benefit their own farmers also beyond those in our network. And so that became the fifth element of what FarmCloud Tech and Data did. Now, across our ecosystem is the fact that technology is in itself the bedrock that powers all of this. So from the farmers getting structured finance to insurance, it then moves into our aggregator channel that allows them to get the inputs, allows them to sell the inputs, and then moves into the FarmCloud Foods channel that allows us to sell those harvests and then get the desired return for both the farmers and also for us as a business. And so this in itself becomes pretty much our ecosystem as to how we go about our activities in FarmCloud. Now, the bedrock of all of this is our technology team. So all our technology is built in-house out of our operational headquarters in Lagos, where all the technology from FarmCloud Foods to the app to the insurance package, all of that comes from the effort of the team locally. And so they continue to churn out solutions for farmers within our network. Now, what we have is a network of 116,000 farmers. This is 116,000 farmers across Nigeria in 16 states in the country. And we have the potential to increase that number to about 300,000 farmers within our network that benefit from the different packages that I've listed out earlier on. But moving forward, we're looking at how we're going to replicate this model in other African countries. So yes, between now and December, the focus is still going to continue to be in Nigeria. But as soon as we turn 4, which will be in November, our focus is going to take a new leap where we are going to be looking for partners and stakeholders that we can work with to replicate our solutions in other African countries, with some of them that I've highlighted on the presentation below. So we'll be identifying Ghanaians that we can work with to provide our solutions for Ghanaian farmers to produce Ghanaian food for Ghanaians to eat. We identify people in Tanzania to provide food for provide solutions for Tanzanian farmers in order to produce Tanzanian food for Tanzanians to eat. And across the entire continent, we will continue to scope who we can work with and partner with. And this will cut across whether it's ministries of agriculture, and we're so very, because with the right stakeholders from the government supporting initiatives like what we have, it can have massive scale and impact on the lives of the farmers we can work with. So farmer cooperatives as well. And so our model sees where cooperatives join under our super cooperative, and they can then benefit from all the solutions we have, to financial institutions that we can build robust solutions for our farmers with, to online communities, online agriculture communities. And we currently have one of the largest online communities in AgriSquare that allows people to connect with enthusiastic individuals that want to understand more about the agriculture space, to consultants or development partners that we can work with. And so all the big stakeholders that are, whether those that are on this call or those that are going to get involved with what FarmCloud is doing in the future, we're happy to partner with and then continue to collaborate with to do the work we're doing across the continent. Just some of the partners we've worked with in the past, including Hello Tractor, like I mentioned earlier on, that have provided tractor services for us in Nigeria, the likes of OCP, and so many other partners that we've worked with. And so this in itself is FarmCloud and what we've done in the last 3 years plus, and the excitement for what we continue to do across the continent. So thank you for having me. I look forward to the questions and answer section, and happy to answer questions when you come up.
Thank you very much, Onika. Just to say that from your presentation, I do see quite a lot of synergy between some of the solutions that you offer and then what AFAB also offers through our tech initiatives. We will then go forward to have our presentation by Mr. Ibrahim Guruzo. He would be then crowning it all by all of the presentations that we have had over this within the last hour. It is very clear that we do need private sector's involvement, and then we also have synergies in all of the interventions that each of us are spearheading and then also implementing, and there is a need for partnership and then also leveraging. So I would hand over to Mr. Ibrahim.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Greetings to all of you on behalf of the African Union Development Agency, AUDA NEPAD. I'm very happy to be with you here and share experiences and input and comments on technology to develop agricultural value chains in Africa. I'm also particularly happy to see my very good friend, colleague, ex-colleague, and brother, I will call Joost today. And most definitely, I look forward to the discussion that will happen after the presentation. So mine really is not a presentation. I would like maybe to put or to give a bit of context to what has been said by the different colleagues before me this afternoon. I mean, those numbers I will highlight here. We all know them, but it doesn't harm to repeat them. Agribusiness in Africa today, the sector represents more or less 3 billion USD. In the next 15 years, it is envisaged that the agribusiness sector will reach 1 trillion. The industry will reach 1 trillion. We all know today that Africa has 1.3 billion inhabitants, and close to 800 million of them live in a rural area. We also know that agriculture accounts to a quarter of the continent GDP and employ 70% of the population. We also know that 60% of the arable land are in Africa. So we also know that in Africa, agriculture has the potential to be the driver for economic transformation, combating poverty, enhancing food and nutrition security, and providing jobs, especially for our youth. So despite those good numbers, productivity in agriculture in Africa is 3 times less than the one in Europe and 2 times less than the productivity in Asia. Why? The reasons are so many, but I just want to point few to you. Mostly, we are of the view that it's because segments of the agricultural value chains are not connected. And because of those challenges faced by smallholder farmers today in access to information and technology, innovative, affordable financial solution, quality equipment and training, quality input and market and infrastructure, we are of the view that because of those challenges, the uplift of livelihood in rural area is jeopardized. But what are the solutions? In Africa, we have tried so many things. We've tried public sector interventions. We've tried development partners interventions. We've tried NGOs interventions. We've more or less good results. But it is globally agreed today that if we want to develop agriculture, agribusiness, food system in Africa, we definitely need a coalition of public and private sector intervention.
And it was like a flash. Ah, that's good. So, okay. But when I finish, and so again, when I dream and I wake up and I remember the dream, that means something that you need to just. That's a very good dream. But that was how I came up. That's
So I was saying that in order to overcome those challenges, we need a strong coalition of public and private sector interventions. So what do we need? What we need is a mix of 5 thematics. 1, policy reforms. 2, agricultural development funds in Africa for innovative financial solutions like working capital, de-risking mechanism, grants. 3, we need interconnection of actors of agri value chains, especially, more importantly, we need to connect smallholder farmers to commercial value chains. 4, we need to develop regional climate smart value chains. And lastly, we need also innovative urban agriculture to feed the growing number of Africans living today in cities. So this mix and the coordination of public and private sector actors can only be achieved. I'll come back to why I say only. So can only be achieved through the African Union Country Agribusiness Partnership Framework, which is deployed today by AUDA and NEPAD through Go Africa in 16 African countries, from West to East to Southern Africa. The operationalization of Country Agribusiness Partnership Framework, or CAPEF, at country level will do 4 things. It will identify systemic policy issues. 2, it will mobilize and unlock investment finance. 3, it will match those investment finance with priority commercial opportunities in priority value chains. And lastly, it will serve also as an inventory and registry of each country's partnership and commitment on investment and policy change. The rollout of CAPEF, Country Agribusiness Partnership Framework, that Go Africa is rolling out today, as I said, in 16 African countries. To do so, Go Africa has developed a strong business model, which has been tested, which has shown concrete results, tangible results, with a mobilization last year in 2019 of over $200 million of private sector investment in priority agriculture value chains in 5 African countries. So the business model, or the operationalization of the Go Africa business model, will start with the setting up of inclusive multi-stakeholder platform in priority value chain. So the issue we are discussing today, the access to technology or the deployment of technology, can be deployed through those multi-stakeholder platforms set up by stakeholders in countries with the blessing of public and private sector, if really we want to have or see a maximum impact while we are deploying those technologies. So all the technology that my colleagues have been talking about before me in terms of digitalization, in terms of mechanization, in terms of post-harvest loss and so forth and so on, those technologies, if we want them to have the maximum and to reach the impact that we want to, we need to deploy them through our multi-stakeholder platform. Let me give you one example. As Go Africa, when we started deploying our model in Mozambique, so both public and private sector has identified the soya bean as a priority value chain. From that, we've organized the actors of the value chain in an inclusive multi-stakeholder platforms, and the farmers themselves have identified key technology that needs to be deployed across the value chain if we want to develop that soya bean value chain. So as we are speaking, from the 1st of July, we've started a development program or training program for 2,000 farmers in Mozambique, where we are deploying technology trainings which range from business skills development, finance literacy, mechanization services, sustainability strategy through seed multiplication, use of quality inputs, and so forth and so on. We're also deploying training tracker tools. We're also deploying digital platforms through WhatsApp groups where communication among members of the platform can be immediate and can be also able to address key issues that they have been facing in that particular platforms. In the continent today also, we are witnessing more and more the use of precision agriculture in countries like South Africa, in countries like Nigeria, in countries like Cote d'Ivoire, to name few. We are aware that the deployment of this technology has some challenges that need to be addressed in terms of regulation, in terms of business model, and so forth and so on. So the deployment of technology for impactful agriculture has started. It's growing on the continent. In conclusion, what I want to say is that we need, if we are really serious about transforming our agriculture, we need to start by getting our bases right. Setting up those multi-stakeholder platforms, deploying those technologies, among others, within those platforms. That's what, as Grow Africa, we are promoting. So we are here today to build a coalition of goodwill from various actors. Some of them are present today. So we have the mandate, of course, of the African Union and AFAB NEPA to do so. So we are more than willing to work with those goodwill partners in order to strengthen the business models that we are deploying. And strengthening those business models will definitely mean also bringing and infusing technology to actors of value chains across the continent. I want to pause here, Madam Moderator. I will hand over to you, and I'm sure I will have the opportunity to answer questions and come back at a later stage. I thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much to Mr. Ibrahim. Before we head out, I would just like to go over some of the presentations before we move on to just a refresher of before we head into the question sessions as we prepare to then share the screen for all of the questions that have been posed. Our first presentation setting the stage was talking about Joost, who gave an overview of AFAB's initiatives, internal initiatives, and also the direction which AFAB will be going in terms of pushing forward some of the new technologies, addressing gaps at the last mile delivery of inputs, the ability to track and provide real-time data and quality information for decision making, especially going over our policy tracker, which is currently being
Yost, I think we lost Sandra.
Yeah.
Yost, can you take over, please?
Hello?
Yeah, very good.
Hello?
Yes, yes. Hello, you're back. We can hear you again. You went off for a moment.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Basically, before we go into the session, the quick Q&A sessions, and before we read some of the questions that are coming up, I just wanted to reiterate some of the discussions that, reiterate some of the discussions that were presented earlier on. So we had a presentation by Yost, who made a presentation on the key initiatives that AFAB was rolling out and is implementing, looking at digitization along the input distribution value chain, providing real-time information for decision-making, helping the input distributors or retailers to be able to also track their inventory and build portfolios of their sales and sales information and data that will then help them or support them to be able to upscale and make better business decisions. We also had a presentation, he also mentioned in his presentation about the policy tracker, which will then focus on government's performance and tracking government's performance and holding governments accountable to key targets that they themselves will be setting. And then we will then be able to provide the technical support and assistance to ensure that governments do stick to their targets or achieve those targets that they set for themselves. Speaking for Hello Tractor, also mentioned or gave us an overview of their operations, current operations, looking at a presentation on mechanization and the opportunities that are available for scaling up or digitizing the mechanization value chain. One of the things that in most African countries is that mechanization is quite still remote and still left. And it's an area that is still untapped. And with their model, I think scaling up into other countries will be very essential. And we as all as partners should be looking at how we can support Hello Tractor to be able to either scale up into other countries or be able to replicate the same models that they have. Going forward, we also had FarmCloud, who also made a presentation on their model in terms of access to finance, supporting different value chains. And what I saw was that their system had quite a lot of similarities to the product that AFAB was looking at pushing. And I do see some synergies and areas where we can then be able to partner and then to roll out. AFAB is operational in Nigeria, and I think that one of the things we'll be doing is looking at even just starting a partnership of some sort in Nigeria, whilst we then look at scaling up into other West African countries to start with. In closing or rounding up all of the discussions, we had a brief discussion or presentation by Mr. Ibrahim, who was calling us to garner us as a platform or create a platform where we as private sector partners could also harness each other and leverage on the main platforms or on our individual initiatives to come forward to address some of the key issues that we have in the agri sector. Now, so we go into the question and answer section. So I have some questions for each of the presenters, and I'll just read them out and then give an opportunity for the presenters to then look at answering some of the questions that will come up. So for Mr. Onyeka, we have a question on how do you plan to overcome the language challenges as you expand? So there's a question about language challenges and language barriers. So one of the biggest issues we see is a transition from French speaking to English speaking, especially
Okay, so the way we're going to walk around language barriers is first, in scaling our operation, we're going to identify key partners that we can work with. So key partners in the different countries. We're not going to be taking people from Nigeria and saying, hey, go and sit in Kenya, and also go and sit in a country where you don't understand the language to start out our operations. Initially, maybe in taking off, we will do that, but we will identify key partners that we can work with those countries that are going to join the FarmCloud team to help us establish that business in that country. So we're not exporting our people, we're only exporting the technology to those countries. And we identify people in those countries that we will then work with. So speaking to the language barrier, this is in itself how we go about it. And then for our technology itself, we'll have several translators for the technology using Google to see how it penetrates into the countries we need to work with and make it simple for people to understand.
Thank you. So another question is that, is your system workable offline? I think this question can apply both to Hello Tractor and then to FarmCloud. So is your system workable offline, especially in areas where we know we're in West Africa and our internet situation is not very good? And one of the things is that, is your system able to work offline or online?
At the moment, we built our system to work offline. It has some cloud service so it can work offline, and then when it has connection, can be uploaded. Two is we built our systems that engage with the farmers, not to have so much sophistication that you need a smartphone for. I mean, where there's a smartphone, fantastic, but where there's no smartphone, it can also work. That's for FarmCloud.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right, so yeah, so please go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say for Hello Tractor, it's the same as well. So our devices come with an international SIM card that works anywhere in the world. It also has the ability to hold offline data for up to 30 days. And then once the device gets into a Wi-Fi zone, it will download all the activity during those 30 days.
All right, thank you. So there's another question here that says, how has COVID-19 impacted your operations, and has the pandemic accelerated demand for digital solutions, especially the kinds of digital solutions that you provide? So I don't know if Paula can start by answering, and then we can then have Onyeka also provide that answer.
Sure. So I think that if we look at the effects of COVID-19, I was just talking about this earlier today. While we've seen financial markets kind of choke up and close up, especially in the markets that we operate in, from an operational perspective, I think things have certainly picked up quite a bit. And it's a conversation that we have, almost on a daily basis about how do we support our customers in a time where movement is restricted, or where access to migrant labor, which is often what's used instead of tractors, is limited as well. So we see the demand for tractors going up quite a bit in some of our markets. Also, especially because in a lot of countries, agriculture is an essential service, and so tractors can move around a lot easier than cars can when there's movement restrictions. So from an operational perspective, we've definitely seen an increase. We continue to encourage that because we think that tractors can not only be used for normal mechanization activities like plowing and harrowing and harvesting, but can also be used as a means of transportation and transporting goods to the last mile, where often, especially in the times of COVID, the distribution channels are disrupted.
All right, thank you. So just to reiterate, in terms of demand for AFAB's tools, I don't know if you can start talking about, or you can just give an overview of what in the last couple of months, what has AFAB done in terms of utilization? Was the demand for AFAB's services quite increased?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question. Is this related to the COVID-19? Is that the question?
So basically, the question is looking at how has the COVID-19 impacted operations, and has it increased demand for your digitized solutions?
Okay, thank you. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think there's a few points here. One, it is important that you also have your boots on the ground, so to speak. And in the case of AFAB, we have presence across multiple countries on the African continent with our country operations. So that's a big advantage, obviously. because it allows you to directly connect with local stakeholders, governments, both federal as well as in the regions, to plan your actions. So in that sense, we have been pretty agile considering the circumstances, and that has been to our advantage. At the same time, obviously, you see a lot of the partners we work with have been reassessing what they are going to do about the new situation. So that has led to some more, let's say, staticness in terms of action and decision making, which has not been easy, but obviously not really in our control. When you look at the digital angle, I think that is really something which is very beneficial for us, and the work we've been doing is really, starting to pay off because people see more and more. I mean, literally now, this webinar we organize is a good example. It shows that if you do have the digital tools in place and you do have the experience on how to apply them to meet needs in the agribusiness sphere, you can really add value directly with or without a COVID. And I think that just amplifies the importance of this conversation we're having today. And certainly AFAB, I think, is pretty well geared for that. But we cannot do that alone, obviously. We do need to team up with our other brothers and stakeholders active in the same space.
All right. Thank you very much. And I think there's a question that came up also asking what AFAB is doing directly to support agro dealers in terms of technology, and then also how AFAB intends to roll that out and what those solutions are.
Yes, it's a good question. I tried to sort of explore that a little bit in the brief introduction we had, giving you some real-time examples of solutions already existing. Obviously, it depends a little bit on the context of what we're talking about. Is it about strengthening and bolstering the data collection and aggregation of the supply chain? Is it about managing fertilizer financing? Or is it actually about better being able to service and support farmers with their needs and linking that to the stock you hold at the retail level? I mean, these are different angles, and before you're rolling out sort of comprehensive digital solutions, which are generally costly but also vulnerable, we do like to have a more, let's say, modular approach where we start with a tangible issue, for example, fertilizer financing, or for example, providing the right product for the right purpose to the farmers at farm level and all the way up and down the supply chain, and build on that. And there we do have solutions ready and present. Another angle might be, if it's more aggregated, it is more from a policy review, from a policy point of view, I'm sorry. But that is obviously then maybe a more federal or more regional challenge to address. But certainly we do have a lot of those solutions available and ready. So yes, is the answer.
Okay, thank you. I think just to add to what you said, I'm one of the direct benefits of technology initiatives that AFAB is rolling out or will be rolling out in the next couple of months is the sales point inventory system that would then be located at the agri-dealer level, and which would support or help the agri-dealer to be able to track sales and inventory, as well as make informed decisions about product performance, which would then go into bettering or enabling the agri-dealer to be able to make informed decisions about his business model. It also provides the agri-dealer a better digitized bank statement, digitized supporting documents in terms of going out there to look for investments. Because one of the things that investors always look out for is your credible data or credible information sources that to back whatever your figures of sales are or your figures of movement of product is. And this solution will be very critical and in support of the agri-dealer operation and digitization. So another question or a contribution by Luamba says technology, especially to agri-dealers, needs to be taken seriously. In South Africa, most agri-dealers have moved from traditional in-store sales to digital sales platforms. Cost of storing inputs is expensive. Through technology, we have seen farmers placing orders to agri-dealers and agri-dealer orders to suppliers, then deliver to farmers. And technology can make agri-dealer lives easier. I do agree with you, Luamba. Thank you very much. So there's a question also for Hello Tractor that says, is there a big difference? There's a big difference between smallholder agriculture and large-scale commercial agriculture. How in South Africa, how have you been able to tackle or to be able to respond to these issues, and where?
Yeah, so I posted a small response to this on the chat as well, but I think these are two very distinct and important questions, right? So one is our focus is really around smallholder farmers. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is the product, our core products are the low horsepower tractors. That are typically in markets that we operate in. 90% of those sold in the markets are used for contracting. Typically, when you look at large farms, they have tractors that are higher horsepower. They already come with brilliant technology from the Trimbles and the John Deeres of the world that they're paying a lot of money for because the asset is worth more than $200,000, right? So that's not the market that we play in. We play in markets where the tractor is low horsepower. It has basically no technology on it at all. So there's really no way to track and manage and professionalize your operation as a tractor contractor. The other issue here is the trust issue, and I think that most people in this space can appreciate that is a daily ongoing thing, a question, an issue. I think the trust factor is no different. I know we like to sometimes speak about it from an African perspective, but I grew up in the States and have experience in other areas. There's really no difference when you think about trust at a farmer level or anywhere. It's an issue that we talk about and we think about every day. And one of the things that we've tried to do, we've put in a couple inputs to try to manage this. So one is, I talked about the booking agents. So booking agents, as I spoke about, are energetic youth that are from the communities that they're aggregating demand in. They have good standing there. They also know how to apply technology and kind of work as our boots on the ground there. And so we use them kind of to garner trust with the farmers because they're usually from those communities. We also do a lot of engagement. I think someone was just talking about the digital engagement. We do a lot in terms of digitally engaging with booking agents and farmers through things like WhatsApp and Facebook, really just to again endear ourselves to the farmers. They have some name recognition, and also they're able to see services being provided, and I think that builds trust over time.
All right. Thank you very much. So my question then comes to you directly in terms of gender disparities in terms of access to mechanized services. One of the things that we've noticed in sub-Saharan Africa is that women have much more limited access to mechanized services than men do, relating to a number of factors. And looking at your model, I see that you do address some part of it, but do you have any incentives or discounts that will then go directly to benefit women and also encourage women to access or to be able to access these services?
This is a question for me, for Hello Tractor?
Yes, directly to you, follow.
Okay. Yeah. So that's actually a metric that we track as well, very, very closely. Personally, and from what I've seen in the business, we try to attract more women farmers and more women booking agents and more women tractor owners because, frankly, they are hard workers. They do work and they do it well. And we see it from the data that we have. So it's to our commercial interests and also a social interest to attract more women into the platform. We've done some pilots. We just ended one with CTA. We've done some with USAID to really kind of encourage and incentivize more women on the platform. But I think, again, just like the trust issue, I think it's an ongoing, ongoing discussion and ongoing challenge. And we're trying new things as we go along. But it's a metric that we track and report on a monthly basis.
All right, thank you. The question for Onyeka says that, can you speak to crowdfunding and government subsidy in Africa, in Africa's agri space? Is agricultural crowdfunding the future of resolving smallholder financing challenges? I mean, this is looking at crowdfunding in relation to government subsidies and how this can either way support smallholder farming or smallholder agriculture. So if you can just kindly speak to that.
Yeah, so I think the need for funding in agriculture may not necessarily find crowdfunding filling the entire gap. I think agriculture is still a major sector that requires heavy funding from the government. Crowdfunding dwells more on how the private sector or individuals are able to participate in the agriculture space and appreciate the effort of farmers across the value chain. So I wouldn't see crowdfunding replacing conventional ways of funding agriculture, but rather complement the efforts you get from those conventional funding channels in order to continue to boost the access that farmers will get to funding. And so that's one. Two is that for crowdfunding in agriculture, I think one of the things we've noticed in FarmCloud is beyond providing funding or inputs for the farmers, it goes beyond that to saying you start out crowdfunding. If you truly want to get involved in the space, you will start out your crowdfunding project first by identifying the market to sell the farm produce once the farmer is done using the funds from crowdfunding to get that harvest. So I think it's important. I mean, for us as a business, that is why we've extended our services beyond just being a typical crowdfunding platform to providing added the desired harvest, and at the end of the day are able to continue to make their contributions to the food value chain. Now, the last thing I'll say is concerning subsidies for the agricultural space, just like the point I raised earlier, I think it should continue happening. I think the government should continue to have conversations with the private sector. I think agriculture should be powered by the private sector participation in a 50-50% ratio, where the government supports with 50% and then private sector is involved with 50%. If you go to markets like developed markets like you have in North America, or you have even in Brazil, or you have in Europe, you'll find that there are not so many small-scale farmers or medium-scale farmers, but large-scale farmers that have received large incentives from the government in order to develop such large-scale agricultural practices that produces the food that allows them to be self-sustained, provide food sufficiency for that market. I think it's where we would want to see our own government get to as they continue to engage the private sector in how policies are created and incentives are developed for the African context.
Right, thank you. So to everyone, can we continue to, I would encourage you to continue to post your questions either on Mindy or in the comments section, and then we'll ask, or I'll be able to ask the related questions to each of the presenters. So now to Mr. Ibrahim. The question here that says investment in local language information can really help farmers and also ensure dissemination of information and new technology. How is Grow Africa addressing that? Issues of language barriers and also initiatives that will promote localization of these technologies?
Okay, no, thank you, Madam Moderator. As I said, Go Africa is a broker. Go Africa, because it has a mandate from the African Union to bring or to develop agribusiness and to bring private sector to invest into agriculture, has a strategic framework and a business model, and is deploying it in all African countries which have signed for CAADP. And in doing so, when we set up those multi-stakeholder platforms, we go with those inclusive platforms. We go with humility to them. We gather the stakeholders, and we identify together the challenges and the solutions to develop a multi-stakeholder platform. So if in any particular country, if in any particular priority value chain for both private and public sector, there is a need to deploy technology or capacity or build a capacity using local languages, obviously it's something that we're just going to embrace and we are going to implement. So we do what our stakeholders tell us to do in countries. And our stakeholders are public sector, private sector, and those non-state actors. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So there's a question here that says, what can we, to Mr. Ibrahim again, what can we achieve through Africa Agribusiness Network in partnership with private and public sector initiatives? How can we foster these kinds of partnerships, and to what extent, or at what extent is Go Africa willing to support the public-private partnership dialogues and interventions?
Yeah. So in the business model of Go Africa, once we've gone through the rollout of the strategic framework, CAPEF, and stuff like that, we don't intend to direct or to implement sitting from wherever we are in Johannesburg or elsewhere. We work with institutions on the ground. And those institutions have been selected in a transparent manner during what we call CAPEF validation workshops, where we bring all the actors, as I said again, and we present the rollout of CAPEF in a particular country, and we present to the stakeholders the institutions in countries which has been selected to host the CAPEF secretariat and to deploy CAPEF from the ground. So for instance, when we deployed CAPEF in Uganda last year, the stakeholders themselves have identified UAA, Uganda Agribusiness Alliance, as a CAPEF secretariat or coordination mechanism in Uganda. And we are working with them, UAA. So we've channeled found to UAA to put in place all the secretariat and coordination mechanisms, steering committee, and so forth, and start organizing the actors of the value chains. So then we get those commercial opportunities. So then we organize investment forums where we showcase those commercial opportunities to private sector investment. So then we facilitate signing of PPPs or term sheets or B2Bs. And so then we work to convert those B2Bs or PPTs into real investment deals in priority value chains. So we work with selected agribusiness networks or priority value chains platforms in countries. We don't impose anything. The stakeholders, they chose by themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So in terms of the next round of selection of participants, given the fact that this is a platform where we are looking at promoting partnerships among key partners that are coming up or emerging opportunities, is there an opportunity for Go Africa to then provide this kind of or coordinate these kinds of partnerships and then help these kinds of partnerships for better internal implementation?
most definitely, you see, Madam Moderator, the issue we are facing in most of African countries, in the majority of them, which jeopardize the development of agriculture and the transformation of agriculture, is that the approach are not coordinated. We have today a strong framework, a strong business model to be able to bring private sector investment into agriculture. That model has been tested. I've presented myself to all the constituency you can think about, the World Bank, the EU, you name them, all the development partners. None of them had anything to say against that model. So it's working, it has been tested, it's perfect, it's strong. So what we need, and that's what we tell public sector and government when we go to countries, whatever assistance or request for assistance you might get from other partners, ask them to align to country agribusiness partnership framework and the Go Africa business model. So having said that, for instance, the technology that we've discussed today, they can naturally and easily fit into the Go Africa business model in the countries. So then we avoid duplication. So then we reach much more impact because our multi-stakeholder platform are inclusive enough to bring all the actors of the value chain and has the support of both public and private sector. So most definitely there's a room. That's what I was saying when I was making my introductory remark. We are building a coalition of goodwill. So anyone who has is say, is meaningful say, in helping us to bring private sector investment into agriculture, we start with developing multi-stakeholder platform and bringing capacity there, is welcome.
Great, great. So I think going forward, constituents, we will need to then organize ourselves and align ourselves internally to our country-specific agendas, and also look at how we can then both approach the Grow Africa initiative and take advantage of the platforms that they also provide. Another question or a contribution from Phil. Phil says agro-dealers need to give advice and support, not just sale of products. And I do agree with you. The agro-dealer model that AFAB is promoting goes beyond just the sale of product. It also looks at providing market opportunities to the farmers by the agro-dealers, also linking the agro-dealers directly to the farmers to provide extension information and able to help the farmer to go to increase their productivity. So we welcome more questions if we have more questions.
Naisha, there was a
Yes.
question if AFAB is active in Zambia. Just very briefly, the answer is yes. We have actually, in collaboration with African Green Resources, AGR, and the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry there, just launched a fertilizer financing facility, as well as a value addition fund of $40 million and $170 million respectively, together with these partners. This was just officially launched this month, actually. So yes, we do have an increasing presence in Zambia. So if you have questions on that, do reach out to any one of us. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Jos, for spotting that question and answering it and providing the response to that. We will then go ahead, giving the ample time that we have, go ahead and then invite Jason to give us a closing remark, or if he has any contribution, to give us a contribution and closing remark.
Well, thanks, Donna, and thanks to all the speakers. These were four exceptionally good presentations. I just have to say and tip my hat to that. I don't know who planned the or the selection and set the agenda for today. But my hat's off to them as well, because you know, if I could start with the first three presentations, I really was impressed at how well they captured technology innovation in terms of increasing smallholder access in areas in a very balanced way, I would say. You know, starting Joost with his, you know, the access to the educational agronomic resources, but also real market intelligence. So here, this is sort of like the educational function, access to information, rolling right in to follow and the access to input, the access to equipment. In this case, the most challenging piece in people who deal in agri-dealer trade. How do we get mechanization? How do we get high-priced tractors working for smallholder farmers? Incredibly exciting, the work that Hello Tractor is doing. And then the third, bringing in that needed financing lens, and not just in terms of the crediting, but the insurance and the aggregation that allows for some scale to be investment worthy or credit worthy. Not only is FarmCloud doing it and doing it well, you're doing it in one of the most dynamic and complex financing markets, Nigeria. It's you know, as I'm sitting here, I'm like, you know, thinking I really want to go work for Folu and Onekia, just in, you know, in terms of where would I want to go work? Who would I want to work for? What team would I want to be part of? You guys are tackling two of these most critical areas of smallholder farmer access. And again, my hat's off on that. The comment I wanted to make is, as we think about, you know, information and education through technology, improved access to equipment and input through technology, and ultimately the financing, the risk mitigation tools that go in there, is that rather than thinking of these as, you know, single levers to be pulled once, they get calibrated. And I think there were so many comments by the presenters and the participants who offered questions that really spoke to that. Well, how can we put A and B together here? How do you improve access to equipment, productivity enhancing inputs, at the same time you're bringing greater agronomic information, understanding better the trade of agri-dealers. Similarly, the financing is always the most challenging aspect, and how do you bring in real financing and greater efficiency into the market and put these things together? If you were, you know, actively searching for three different agencies to show that synergy, you couldn't have done a better job than you did today, because I think it just fits so well. And on that, I would add nothing other than to say well done. And I really hope that conversations continue and we see these collaborations, and with all the other great work being done by participants and their organizations and out there. And the last thing, you know, coming to Ibrahim and Grow Africa. Ibrahim, I've been following Grow Africa from the start, and I think the vision you laid out was probably, you know, the most pragmatic and clear-headed vision in a long time. And the reason I say that is because I think in the early days, when we used to have the Grow Africa meetings as just sort of an adjunct to the World Economic Forum, we thought in terms of, well, we're going to just attract this big investment, these big corporates, someone from somewhere else is going to come in here and exploit all our potential and make us a real great agricultural economy. And that's certainly part of the equation, is you want to have global presence, you want to have a global penetration. But what your message today, and following on, again, three very good presentations to set the stage, is reflecting, and I was just taking notes as I was, you know, scratching down the background. Three organizations that all came into existence within a 3-year period of time, all grounded in Africa, all seen enormous exponential growth. in their last few years. Much of this idea and discussion, the platforms, the strategies that are being pursued by these groups were in fact discussed in those early years of Grow Africa Forum, but often through the lens of somebody else coming from afar, pulling something in and matching public-private partnership on the ground. These are much more bottom-up grounded, spontaneous, if you will, SME targeted interventions. And as Grow Africa continues to develop and evolve, I just think you're in a wonderful position to take, groups like these and the hundreds and hundreds of other actors that are now springing up, and enabled through the improved technology and their own intervention to a whole new level. And I think that is really, these are exciting years. And I guess I'm gonna get a little nostalgic, but I almost wish I could go back and start my career again and bring my resume to, Folu and Inoka, just to start from where we're at today. I think we're in a really good position. I know today, just finally, we didn't talk too specifically about the COVID-19, but I think the efficiencies, the economy, the activity that's being maintained during this let's call it rural economic depression that we see as a result of COVID-19 is again exceptional and noteworthy. And I think as strategies begin to define around who's trying to stabilize those markets, the work that you all are doing will be very relevant and very much at the forefront. So again, thank you to everybody, and hope we can continue the discussion. Thank you, Nana. Thank you for the facilitation.
Thank you. Just to reiterate that the West Africa Trade Hub Investment Hub has also announced a grant portfolio for agribusiness and research institutions that have an innovative and technology idea to boost smallholder farmer productivity in Nigeria. So you're welcome to send an email to Emmanuel at westafricatradehub.com. He's posted in the comment section, you'd see he has posted his email address. So you can kindly go there if you have an innovation and you're looking for an investment, and they could surely help you. Emmanuel will be very resourceful in supporting you. Thank you very much for making time to join us. I hope that the discussions and then the opportunities that have been created by this platform would come to fruition. Thank you to Grow Africa. Thank you to FarmCloud, and then also to Hello Tractor for making the time. Thank you to Joost for also putting together a very good presentation of AFAB's key activities or key initiatives that are upcoming and what are already currently being implemented. I hope that we will continue these discussions. All of the presentations and for today will be embedded in our next AFAB newsletter that will be posted to everybody. This session has also been pre-recorded and it has been recorded, and then the link will also be shared in the next newsletter. I hope that we also have other resources that you can go to our page, www.afab-partnership.org. You'll find a number of information if you're looking for opportunities as well with partnerships with AFAB. Each of the country offices and then their information, the contact persons are on that page, and then we always welcome partnerships. We always welcome opportunities to collaborate and to also scale up and then increase the impact of our interventions within countries. So thank you very much, and then have a good day.
Thank you, Nana.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. We appreciate.
Thank you, Nana. Great job. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Nana.
Bye. Very good.
All right. Bye bye then. Bye bye.